What's up, guys? It's Wolf from the Quarantine, and today we're going to be taking a look at a little-known game called Kingdom Death Monster. Now, if you notice, I'm only holding up the rulebook of Kingdom Death Monster. I'm not holding up the box. The reason for that is Kingdom Death Monster's box is a titan compared to pretty much everything else that I own. The only two boxes that even come remotely close to it in size is Horus Heresy and Pokemon Master Trainer. Both of which, if you stacked on top of each other, they still probably wouldn't even come close to Kingdom Death Monster's size of its box. Now, if you've been living under a rock and don't know what Kingdom Death Monster is, the best way that I can figure out to describe Kingdom Death Monster is if you take Dark Souls, that everything is suffering and everything's just dark and horrible. If you take that, add a touch of Monster Hunter, run that as a Dungeons & Dragons game, but the game DMs itself, that's probably the best way I can describe Kingdom Death Monster. Now, there's a couple things that I'm going to have to say before I start this review. As usual, this is a review, it's not a tutorial, so I'm definitely going to be skipping a lot of rules. I may make some mistakes in some rules, and I may just gloss over some entirely. There are a lot of rules to Kingdom Death Monster, but don't be too scared. The rulebook has a really good way of teaching all of the rules very slowly. I'll leave that to you to discover by yourself, but I will cover the basics. So again, I'm not covering all the rules in this game. The other thing is, I have every expansion for the game. I did not kickstart it. I actually bought it all full retail because I have a problem. And I will be pointing out what's expansion stuff and what isn't. When you get the game, if you get the base game, you will be getting the 4 starting survivors, all of the armor sets, which I don't know offhand. I think there's four sets of each armor set, and I want to say there's like 12 or 13 full sets of armor sets. So you get 4 miniatures for each armor set. You get the 4 starting survivors. You get the White Lion, the Phoenix, the Butcher, the Screaming Antelope, the Watcher, the Kingsman, and the King's Hand. You get all that in the base game, and you get all the cards and tokens and everything that the game comes with. And then I'll show off some of the additional, not all of it, but I'll show off additional expansion content. Now the last thing, though, is I have all of my miniatures painted as well. The models come similar to like Games Workshop fashion, where you got to put them together. They're just kind of like the grayish, whitish plastic. You put them together, and you don't have to paint them, but of course I generally try to paint a lot of my miniatures. Generally don't get around to it, but I try. But that pretty much is all I have to say about Kingdom Death Monster right now, so let's just go ahead and dive straight into the overview. This is a massive undertaking, and I've been trying to figure out how I was going to do this for a while, so sorry if this isn't that great, but let's just go straight over to the overview before this turns into a rant. Alright. Kingdom Death Monster is a very interesting game. There's a few things, additional things that I need to point out. I have these little coin holders, I guess they're called, that I use for my gear grids. These do not come with the game. I also have all of my cards sleeved. These also do not come with the game. But let's go ahead and carry on. The way the game is going to start is you're going to take out the White Lion, right here, and you'll put him out in the middle of the board. Each player, and it's recommended for 4 players, but the game plays 1, 2, I'm wanting to say it's 6. So each player is going to take a starting survivor here, and you're going to put yourself 6 spaces away from the lion. Now the book has some amazing artwork, but the book will explain all of this. It has the opening story, let me put this down here so you guys can see it. But it has some fantastic art with a story that you're meant to read, and introduces the setting. I'm trying to figure out a way to turn these so you can see them a little better. So it introduces the story in a really cool setting, and just kind of sets the mood of everything is just horrible. And then it says here, for the first story, all you have to do is assemble the starting miniatures, the 4 survivors and the lion. And then it's going to tell you step by step how to create a survivor, because you're going to get basically a character sheet. And I know this looks very intimidating, to anybody who hasn't played something like D&D or anything like that, but this is actually really simple. So you're going to get one of these, and it, like I said, it explains to you here how to set up a character sheet. You're going to get some basic gear. You're going to get a cloth and a little dagger. And then, again, it's going to continue on, and it explains how everybody needs to set up. So you set up 6 spaces around the lion. And then it's going to tell you specifically how to build the Lion's AI deck, which I'm not going to really get into that. And then you're going to just continue this flow as you keep going. It tells you exactly how to set it up, and that includes the order of certain cards, so that way it can explain to you how each rule is going to go. And then it lets you kind of take the reins and you continue on. And it tells you if the survivors are victorious, and then you're going to continue through this book until you get, I'm wanting to say it's about right here, is the last little bit. The rest of this is just story and all kinds of random things you're going to be looking up, which I'll get to. So let's close this and slide this over, and we'll put our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll put our people 6 spaces away again. And so the way this game is going to work is when you have a little encounter like this, the monster is always going to go first. Now, you have 2 different decks. You have the AI deck, which you're going to build according to the monster deck here, or the monster card. This is each monster will come with their own little special card like this, and you decide what level you're going to be fighting and so on and so forth. So like this one says, it's a custom deck, but like here you'd put 7 B cards, 3 A cards, no L cards, or 10, 9, and 2. Now, when you build this AI deck, this is a very interesting thing, because this is the monster's health. What you're going to do is, throughout the course of the game, every time you do damage, you're going to take one of these and you're going to remove it from the game, essentially. It's more of like a discard. You put it in a wound stack. And once you've removed all of their cards from here, all they can do is their basic attack, which is something they just always get to do. Once you wound them one additional time, then the monster is dead. So it starts with becoming this really cool concept of you're physically hurting what the monster's going to be able to do. So what does that mean? Well, on the monster's turn, how I mentioned the game DMs itself is, on the monster's turn, you're going to flip this over, and whoever the monster controller is going to read this card. They're going to take it and read it. So for example, let me see if I can get this. My light is terrible. I need to get a better light source. But it says Chomp. Pick target, closest threat, facing, and range. And the facing is the two spaces in front of it, and then straight out in either direction and straight forward. So just as though it's looking straight forward. So closest threat, facing, and range. And then if there is no valid target, you'll move down. Closest threat in field of view. Now, because the lion and most of the other creatures are able to look behind them and to their sides, the only 2 places that are not in their field of view is the 2 spaces directly behind them, because they can't see directly behind them. Then, if there still is no target, then the target would sniff, which it shows on here what sniff does. So instinct, sniff, and it has a little blurb of what happens there. But once you've found a valid target, you're going to move down. You're going to move and attack target, and it says speed 1, accuracy 2+, damage 1, and then trigger after hit. So what that means is you're going to take 1d10, because it's got a speed 1, and you're going to roll it. And then you're going to look at its accuracy. Accuracy is 2+, so if you had rolled a 2 or higher, then it has wounded you. So, of course, it was move and attack. You're going to look at the stats of the lion. It has 6 movement and 6 toughness as the tutorial. So that means this lion's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to start, I don't know, attacking Johnny Cage here. And we've already rolled, so we got our 8 on a 2+ accuracy, so it does 1 damage. So because that was a hit, you're going to roll this damage die. So you'd roll it, and that is 1 damage to the head. Now, that's when you're going to look at your little sheet here. Throughout the course of the game, you're going to be getting armor that you'll place in here. You'll just put like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or however much armor you have. Whenever you take a damage to the area, you'll erase one of your marks. So if you had a 2 here, you would erase it and put a 1. If you had a 1, you'd erase it just completely. If you don't have armor, you would then fill in the box over here. So if we look at arms, body, waist, and legs, there's an L and an H. So you have light armor, or light wound, and a heavy wound. Light wound, nothing happens, you're fine. You're just kind of in pain. If you fill in the dark black box for a heavy wound, you immediately knock down. So he's got 1 damage to his head, he's got no armor, so he's going to get knocked down. And if he takes another wound to the head, because that's permanent, well, semi-permanent for the battle, if he takes another wound to the head, he's going to have to roll on this really nasty chart that's going to do severe damage, possibly just kill him outright. So, which I'm not really going to touch too much on that, but that's pretty much how all of these work. So if you take a body shot, and you know, if I take 3 damage to the body, that's a light, a heavy, and then 1 additional wound that's going to carry over, and you're going to have to roll a d10 on a chart and hope you don't die. So that's pretty much how that works. And then when this the monster does that, this, you know, he's got an after hit, and it says Headhunters, always hits the target's head location. So if I would have read that sooner, I wouldn't even bother to roll this. It would have just hit his head. So, and then down here you have another little thing that says no jaw. So throughout the course of the game, which I'll touch on in a moment, you'll be able to do persistent injuries to the lion. And if you do, they stay in play, and they'll be like these will come into effect. So when you draw this, you go, well, wait a minute. Okay, let me look over here. Okay, he has no jaw, so this does nothing. So it's pretty much how that works. So it's really cool because as you do, when you do this, it goes in the discard pile. And then once his stack is gone, he's going to take this and he's going to shuffle it again. And shuffle it all up, and then now that's the new AI deck. And as you do wounds to him, you're removing these and putting him in his wound stack and not the discard pile. So you're actually limiting what he's able to do. That could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. So if all he's able to do from now on is chomp, that might suck really bad because he's just, every turn he's going to flip over chomp. But some other times, you know, maybe all he's going to do is size up. Or maybe something else. It's not really that bad. So, okay, you can work around it. But the system really allows you to feel like you're actually hurting him because you are taking away things that the lion was able to do earlier. And it's really cool. So, once you do all these wounds to him, and then 1 additional, then the whatever you're fighting is dead. So, then it goes to the player's turn. And the players work very similar. Keep in mind what you see here, this is actually from my current campaign. We're actually in the middle of the game currently. And this is one of, I'm wanting to say this is my brother's character sheet, or my brother's gear grid. But what's going to happen here is, let's say this is your gear grid. When you start, you're only going to have a cloth and a little dagger, and that's it. A little stone dagger. But you're going to choose one of these things here that has an attack profile, which is going to be up here. You can. I mean, there's other things you can do, but it works pretty much the same way. You have your speed, your accuracy, and your strength. So what you're going to do is, in this case, the throwing knife. We're going to roll 4 dice, because that's the speed of it, and accuracy 9+, so we only got 2 hits out of that. And then now we have 2 strength. So what does that mean? Well, we look at the creature that we're fighting. They have toughness 6. So that means the difference between 6 minus 2 is 4. So we're going to go ahead and flip these 2 over because we got 2 hits. And these are the locations that we hurt the monster. So we have the beast's ear and the beast's knee. And we have a failure, and we have nothing else over here. It just says you hit the white lion's sturdy kneecap. Now what you're going to do is you're going to choose which one of these 2 you want to activate first. Generally speaking, you're going to want to do the one that does not have a condition on it, because if I fail to wound him, this is going to happen. So we're going to do this. He's got a toughness of 6, we have a strength of 2, so we need to roll 4. So you go roll this again. Alright, we got it. That was a 2. So nothing happened. This would just be discarded harmlessly. Now we go to this one, we got to roll this again. Alright, we got a 3, but let's say we got a 4. So what would happen is you would take one of these AI cards and just put it over in the wound stack. You just wounded him. But let's say we rolled a natural lantern. It's called a lantern 10. If you roll that, you're going to do whatever is below this symbol. That means you crit him. And it's just a normal wound. You're going to take one of these and you're going to discard it because it's a normal wound. Then you're going to perform anything else that it says here. So for example here, the force of the blow damages the White Lion's ear. It's now partially deaf. White Lion gains a -1 accuracy token, which is, tokens are a temporary debuff. So you'll just set it off to the side of the board. Over here, which I don't know if you can see, you would set it off over there so you can remember what's going on. Now, the hit location deck here, you got a big old deck for each monster. This thing isn't all sunshine and goodness. Sometimes you get, or not sometimes, every deck has one in it. You have the trap card. Basically, the monster that you're fighting planned for what you were trying to do. So essentially, I'm not going to bother reading all this, and it's always black up top, because if you notice, the rest of these have color and whatnot, and then there's one nasty card in here. So what's going to happen is, you're basically going to take all of the discarded hit locations, you're going to shuffle them all back together. The survivor that is targeted, which you just perform, generally you just perform a standard attack, so you follow its flow. And whoever's targeted is doomed, meaning they can't spend survival, which I'll get to. And then you're just going to maul the crap out of them, even though you got a hit. So it leads to some interesting things. So you have some weapons that get to roll 5 and 6 dice for an attack. I think 5 is the most. You'd roll 5 attacks for your dice, or for your attack. But the problem is, every one of those that's hit, that's one additional card you're going to have to pull out of this. And if you flip them over, and one of those are a trap, all of them go away, shuffled up, your attack did nothing, and now you're going to get punched in the soul for it. So it's a really stressful mechanic. Really good, but it gets really stressful. So like I said, you got one nasty card in there. But then you have a thing called survival. And survival is a finite resource that every player gets. And you have a little survival here, and you have a maximum number of survival, which I'll get to. Now, survival, you're going to start with 1 because you named your character. You're only ever going to gain survival if something specifically tells you that you're going to gain it when you leave the settlement or when you do something. Other than that, when you spend it, it's permanently gone. You will never get it back. Think of it as, I think it's called fate from like Horus Heresy or something. And the way that works is depending on things that you've learned, which this will all come in a minute, you will have certain little actions that you're going to be able to do up here. So you have dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge, encourage, surge, and dash. And you start out just being able to dodge. So what does dodge do? So if the White Lion, say he attacks you, okay, he hits. So what you can do now is you can go, okay, I will spend 1 survival, and I will dodge this, so it never hit me. Whatever, that's cool. You're allowed to spend 1 survival per turn. But if you're doomed, you lose the ability to be able to spend survival. And the fight's basically going to go back and forth like that, you know, so on and so forth. So the monster's going to go, I keep wanting to say the lion, but the monster in general is going to go, then the survivors get to go. Then the monster goes, then the survivors go. And there is no turn order. You all can discuss, okay, well, you need to go first because we need you to do this, and that way if you mess it up and he runs away, we're not screwed, and so on and so forth. So you get to strategize and figure out who's going to go win, and so on and so forth. But the monster, unless stated otherwise, always goes first. Now, I'll touch on it in a second, but if the monster ambushes you, the monster gets to go twice first. The game hates the survivors, and the game wants to poop all over them. So, some of the monsters that you're going to get in the base game are, of course, the White Lion. And then you're going to have the Screaming Antelope. This nasty little thing here. And then you will have the Butcher. And I'll straight say this now. This is partially me just showing off my paint job. But, you know, if you paint, you know, these models are really, really good quality. And you have the Watcher, which I actually haven't gotten the pleasure to encounter just yet. And you have the Kingsman. And then the King's Hand, which I also haven't gotten to play with them. I need to rebase these guys. They're kind of plain based, but and then last but not least in the base game, you're going to get the Phoenix, which is a nasty little bugger. And then you're going to get a ton of miniatures that look similar to this. Just some random ones that I grabbed. I think this is an expansion one, but stuff like this, and we have Khal Drogo. You got this guy here, and you have all the different armor sets. Now, I personally sold my extra armor sets because I just don't have the time to paint them. And I'm not going to have some painted, some not, so I sold all of them. They're purely aesthetics. However, I'm wanting to say close to like 500 miniatures that you're going to be able to get, or something like that. Don't quote me on that number, but it's in the hundreds. You're going to get a lot. Now, some of the expansion miniatures that you're going to wind up being able to get is the Gorham, that nasty little thing. Then you have the Dung Beetle Knight, and these ones are all available to buy on the store. You have my personal favorite, the Dragon, which actually puts the Phoenix to shame, and what my brother likes to call the Freedom Lion, or the American Lion. And then you even get things like the Lonely Tree, which we haven't actually gotten to play. Now, Adam Poots has an obsession with hands, and I'm not really sure. So if you look at the Phoenix here, he's got hands coming out of his butt. But that is some of the miniatures you'll be getting. Keep in mind, again, mine are all painted. Yours won't be painted like this. But it's not necessary that you paint them. Now, once you are done fighting one of these monsters, what's going to happen is, let me slide these up here. What's going to happen is you are going to undergo the settlement phase. Let me go ahead and grab that board. Alright, now at the settlement phase, once that's set out, you are, and I'm not going to cover this 100%, but you're basically going to start on this side of the track. It's cut on the book. You're going to start on this side of the track, and you're basically just going to do what it says. Now again, the rule book will guide you through your initial setup and setting up your first settlement. Once you do this, you're going to do it the exact same way every time you come back to the settlement. So you're going to set up the settlement, you're going to Survivor's Return, you do anything that says when Survivor's Return, you gain endeavors, which are nifty little things that you get to spend to do other things. Then you draw a settlement event. Now, in a game similar to Dungeons & Dragons, random things happen all the time. And the way this game uses that is you have a settlement deck here. And this is one of the ones that are in, is a reoccurring one that I have to keep separate. But you have these little cards here. Now I have to tell you, these are a pain to sleeve. These are actually two different size sleeves that are all stuck inside of each other, so that way they stay in good condition. Other than that, Adam Poots would probably make a killing if he actually made sleeves specifically for these. But anyways, you have all of these settlement events that just happen. Now in your first settlement event, you're going to get the first day. And you're just going to do everything it says. In your first settlement event, the time you set settlement, you're going to have a lot of things you're going to do. It's going to take probably 2 hours or so to get through your first lantern year. Because you got, one of these that you're going to have to deal with, which again is this one specific one. But every time you're going to draw one of these at random. And like this is an expansion one. But some of these are expansions. If you see a little thing up here that shows it's an expansion. But there's still a ton of them. And you're going to shuffle these up and you're going to randomly pick one. So you might get one you've already gotten, or you might get one that you haven't gotten. Some people play that you discard ones once you get them. But I don't know, I kind of like the potential that you're going to get the same terrible thing happen again. But anyways, once you do that, you're going to update the death count and then do anything that might happen because of that. Then you're going to update the timeline, which is also you're going to do something specific depending. And let me show you kind of what one looks like. Now I have to also state I'm using a different settlement track, but the one that you get with the game is basically this, but it's not as in-depth. So you're going to get something like this, and it's going to have a bunch of lantern years all over it, and it's going to tell you specific things that happen. And ours is scribbled all over. And don't let this intimidate you. This is actually a lot easier than it looks. But
you're going to update the timeline, so you would go here and just click off returning here, and then you're going to deal with returning survivors is going to happen. So and the one I have specifically tells you the settlement or the page, but what you're going to do is you'll pull open the book here, look at the first page, and it'll say returning survivors. So you're going to look down here, and returning survivors is, where is it? Returning survivors, page 151. So you'll go and find page 151. 151. So now you're going to show everybody the fancy art. You're going to do the returning survivors. It's usually going to have some kind of decision you're going to have to make, maybe a roll, stuff like that. So you'll go ahead and deal with all this. I keep punching the camera. I'm sorry about that. So you're going to deal with that. And you're going to deal with anything else that the book will tell you exactly what to do. And you're going to deal with anything else. Then you're going to go ahead and develop. Now, the game starts you off with, and again, this is a pre-built one that is from our current campaign, so yours will not be this big, but you have what's called the little innovation deck. It's going to sit right here. Now, think of the innovations as like a tech tree when it comes to like civilization. So, for example, if we were to innovate the shrine, down here at the very bottom, it says add shrine consequences. So what you're going to do is up here it says inner lantern consequences, or nightmare training consequences, or so on and so forth. So you're going to go through the innovation deck and find all of the cards that say shrine consequences. You'll add it to this deck, shuffle it up real good, and then sit it back here. So the more you innovate, the more cards that are going to go in here, and the better your settlement's going to be able to get. So we're on Lantern year, I want to say like 8, and we have these are all the things that we've innovated. And let me tell you right now, do not neglect to innovate. But you're going to do that, and then the game is going to tell you to set out the settlement locations, which I'm thinking are actually over here. One second. I probably should have been a little better organized, but you're going to set out these. And now these are special things that you're going to be able to do, because once you've killed a creature, pardon me, and once you kill a creature, you're going to get resource cards like this. And you're going to use these to build different things. So bone daggers, bone blades, axes, they're going to use, a bone and an organ, whereas this, sinew is an organ, or lion claw is a bone. Certain things might say that it needs specific things, like the Catarium says one great cat bone up here, and white fur to make the white lion helm, so on and so forth. Now, you're going to do all that, and you're going to wind up storing any resources you have left over, or maybe that you just want to save, because maybe you're wanting to build something later on in the future. So once you're done doing all of that, then you're going to come on over here, which I don't know if you can see that. There we go. You're going to come on over here. It says prepare the departing survivors. You're going to figure out 4 survivors. They're going to be going on the next hunt. Equip them, any equipment you might have available. Like here's this leftover equipment that we have. So you're going to equip everybody with whatever you have available. Okay, you're going to get this weapon. You're going to be our tank. You're going to be our ranged character, so on and so forth. Then you're going to record and archive resources, so anything that was spent, you're going to put back in the box, and as you no longer can own it. Anything that you still have available, you're going to mark down on the settlement event, and then put it back in the box as well, so that way it can be drawn again later. Then you're going to end the settlement phase. Then, after the settlement phase, you're going to flip over the settlement board, and then now you have the hunt phase. So the way the hunt phase works is you're going to take your survivors and you're going to put them here on the start location. Then you're going to look through the book for whatever you're trying to hunt. So I'm trying very carefully not to have a whole lot of spoilers here, because half of this game is discovering a lot of the things yourself. So we'll do the showdown for the white lion. So you'll show everybody the fancy art like usual. You'll have a little story blurb here. It'll have his reference card set out right here so you can see it and have that set out too, so you're not having to reach all over the place. Then you're going to set up the board similar to this, which you should be able to see that. So if you'll notice, let me zoom this in here, where the E's are, you're going to put a specific lion hunt event. Now those look similar to this. Let me put these here. And they have the little lion symbol on the back of them. Anywhere there's not the lion symbol, you're going to put a generic hunt event, which in the base game they're all exactly the same and you probably don't even need to actually set them out. There's a couple expansions that add cards to it, so you'll need to set them out, and those get really nasty. But the base game, technically you don't have to set them out. Then, depending on the level of the creature you're fighting, because you can fight a level 1, level 2, or level 3, you're going to set it out here, here, or here. So in our case here, we are going to set the lion. I'm wanting to say it's right here. So now you're going to decide who's going to be the monster controller first. Whoever the monster controller is going to move up, and you're going to, if there's a card there, or if it's empty if you're not using the standard hunt events, you're going to draw the card and do what it says. And there's going to be, it can be things, cool events that happen while you're out in the wilderness or while tracking this monster, because that's what this is. You're tracking the monster because your settlement needs food and it needs resources and it needs, you know, so on and so forth, because each one of these rounds is a lantern year. It's an undetermined amount of time, and it's basically the time frame it takes one lantern to extinguish, if I'm not mistaken. But once you've done this, if it's a general hunt event, you're just going to roll a percentile, and there's a big list of different settlement events. It's like 7 or 8 pages long. So you'll roll these, you'll find, okay, that's 18, so you'll find number 18, and you'll do that. The monster will only move if those cards specifically tells you it moves. Other than that, it doesn't move. So the next player will do this, pull the card, you'll do what it says, so on and so forth. Now, if you enter the space with the monster, you do not resolve its card, you immediately engage the encounter and the monster goes first. If the monster enters your space, then the monster has ambushed you and it gets to go twice, which is devastating. Now, once you do that, you go back to the hunt phase, or the encounter phase with the monster in the middle of the table. The book will tell you exactly how to set it up with any terrain. You'll pull the terrain cards out, so on and so forth. And that, honestly, is how you play Kingdom Death. There's a lot of rules that I didn't touch on, like if you get knocked down, or if a monster grabs you, or any other special rules that some of the creatures have. But that is basically Kingdom Death Monster. Now, the game comes with a ton of things. So give me a second and I'll actually put my box out showing you how much stuff comes in the box. Granted, this is with all the expansions. Alright, this is pretty much everything after all the expansions. Now, you're looking at half of this, just about, give or take, for the base game. Now, I have everything in deck boxes that are all labeled, but you can see, for example, in Disorders and Basic Resources, that's completely crammed full. And again, a lot of this is expansion content. But the box, when you get it, just the base game, after all the miniatures and everything, you're looking at a 25-pound box. So that's a considerable amount of stuff. You get a whole bunch of different tokens. You get a cool insert that I don't have, but be warned, the insert works really, really well, unless you decide to sleeve your cards. If you sleeve your cards, everything barely fits, and no expansion content will fit in the box. If you don't sleeve, I've heard that the base insert should fit all of the expansions unsleeved. So do with that what you will. If it's a contributing factor, these cards are actually very good card stock. They're very thick. I sleeved them because of the amount of money I've spent on this. I'm making sure I protect my investment. But you get a bunch of terrain tiles to do all kinds of random things, depending on the fight that you're doing. You get a whole bunch of settlement events. Make sure you got pens and probably little post-it notes that we have in here. Or not pens, pencils, because you're doing a lot of erasing. You get a whole bunch of settlement events that, or not settlement events, settlement locations that we don't even have in our game. We haven't discovered yet. You have, the butcher. You got armor sets. What happens if you get a full armor set? You got miscellaneous things over there. You got, let's see, strange resources, more innovations. You got, what is it? Trying to find it here. You got fighting arts that your character may learn to do something really cool that nobody else knows. So like you now fight better with your hands and mouth versus having a weapon, or maybe while you're knocked down you get special bonuses, stuff like that. So that is how Kingdom Death works. So once you're done fighting, you're going to fight your new monster. You're going to do it all over again. And you're just going to repeat that same cycle. And the end goal is to survive 25 Lantern Years and defeat the final boss. Now, there is going to be an expansion in the future called the Lantern Festival, I'm wanting to say, which expands the game to like 40 Lantern Years, but I don't have that. That's not available currently. But as of, the 25th of August, 2016, this is all the expansion content. But that is basically Kingdom Death Monster. I know this is a lot of information, but there's a lot to this game. So let's just go straight over to my final thoughts before this video becomes any longer.
Alright, Kingdom Death Monster. Well, I'm going to try to keep this short because I know this video is already going to be pretty long. So I'm going to say if I were to give a meaningless, arbitrary score to board games, this would get the highest score. Hands down. The only reason why it's not my #1 game of all time is because it's really hard to get to the table. The game requires 4 people. I mean, you could play it with less, but it plays best with 4. You can play it with 5 or 6. Don't, ever. There's no reason to. The game just becomes harder with no additional reward for being harder. But you're going to want the same 4 people, and you're going to want to keep getting them together, because each session, each Lantern Year, takes approximately 2 hours. So you can probably play 2 Lantern Years, and then maybe next week get together, play 2 more, so on and so forth. So it's hard to get to the table. It's not a game you could just grab and go, hey guys, let's just play Kingdom Death. Now, with that said, I've heard rumor that Adam Poots is going to make these little one-shot missions for some of the promo characters. They have some little events that you can encounter them and stuff like that. So they're going to be like one-shot events. That'll be cool. That'll be something that we can go, hey, let's just do a one-shot where we just give ourselves whatever gear. Now, there are some downfalls from the game. Like, I love this game. I absolutely love it. But it's not perfect. So the game is insanely lucky. You have to know that going in. There can be times where you can have this boss character. He or she is amazing, fully armored, he's a badass, got all this strength and wrecking everything. Due to a single dice roll, he's dead. There was nothing you could have done about it. He's just dead. Now, Adam Poots has officially come out and said he doesn't want people getting attached to their characters because they're a finite resource and that's all they're meant for, which is true. They are a resource, and it's effectively a resource management game. But it's hard to tell somebody, okay, name this character, give them armor, go on adventures, tell a story with this character, and then don't get bummed out when they die. For no reason. And that happens a lot. It's going to. A lot. You're going to lose a ton of people, and there was nothing you could have done about it. Some of them are going to die, or a lot of them are going to die because of the monsters, because they rolled really well. Again, really lucky. And so it's a lot of luck, and there's next to no luck mitigation. So you have to go in knowing that. If you don't like games that are solely luck-based, Kingdom Death probably isn't for you. Now, the other downfall from the game is its price of admission. The game MSRP right now is like $400, and I think they just started reprinting it. It was out of print for a while, and you were going to be looking at like $1,300 or something absurd. But you're looking at $400. That's for the base game. Now, the box weighed 25 pounds when it showed up at my door. So you get a lot of stuff for your $400. A lot of plastic, a lot of cards, a lot of everything. And then if you're like me and you want to sleeve it, you're going to have to spend an additional, I think it was $100 just on sleeves. Now, if you're dropping $400 in a game, I got mine for $300. I pre-ordered it. But if you're dropping that much money on a game, you're probably going to want to sleeve it so it stays in good condition to protect your investment. So you're looking at another $100. So MSRP, $500 essentially. So in my opinion, totally worth it. We played a buddy of mine's. He got his Kickstarter version in. I fell head over heels in love with it. That night, I don't even think we were done with the game. I went over and I pre-ordered the other version. Luckily, I had money saved up, so it wasn't too big of a deal. And then I got all the expansions slowly as they kind of came out. So that is a thing to note. The cost of admission is pretty steep. It's high. I kind of wish, and I kind of don't, that Adam Poots would bring the price down. Maybe make the cards a little cheaper. Put them less, because the cardstock quality is outstanding. It's some of the best cardstock quality I've ever seen in a board game. So maybe if you gave normal cardstock, maybe took out all the miniatures and put cardboard stand-ups similar to, a la Fantasy Flight, and then brought the price down, then it would be accessible for more people. And the reason why, I totally get a lot of people don't want that to happen because it kind of takes away some of what makes Kingdom Death kind of special. It's a, I want to say gourmet game or whatever that people say. It's a designer game. It's one that looks really pretty from afar, but the game is so good, it would be a shame that people that don't have $400 to drop, like me, I had money saved up is the only reason. And people who don't have that much money to drop on this game, if they don't have a friend that has it, they're never going to get to play this beautiful game. And that sucks, because I think anybody who plays board games needs to play this game. It is outstanding. The narrative that this game tells by itself is outstanding. So the other downfall, I think, from the game is if you don't like miniatures, it's definitely, of course, not going to be a game for you. Some people made cardboard stand-ups and sold all their miniatures off, so I mean that would work, and you can definitely offset the price for that. But that's pretty much Kingdom Death Monster. The game is truly stunning. There's a few things that I may not have touched on, but if you have the money, I highly, highly recommend pick this up. Maybe go halvesies with a friend or something, but I think everybody that plays board games needs to at least try Kingdom Death Monster. Anyways, before this review becomes more of a rant than it probably already has, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. If you have any questions, comments, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. I read every comment. I have a Patreon up here if you like the show and would like to support it. And if you can give this video a like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you guys next time in the quarantine.